Welcome to The Explainer. So, you're taking on the JLPT N3. You probably already know it's a pretty huge leap. Well, today, we are going to completely deconstruct it, piece by piece, and hand you a strategic blueprint to turn all that test anxiety into a really confident plan for success.
So here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll talk about why the N3 is such a critical bridge to fluency. Then, we'll decode the exam itself, build a study plan that actually works, get into tactics for each section, and finally, wrap up with how to win on test day.
Okay, so why all the fuss about the N3? Look, it's not just another test on the list. This is the crucial bridge that takes you from, beginner-level Japanese to a truly functional intermediate level. Passing the N3, that opens up real doors. We're talking jobs, school, and a much, much deeper connection to the culture in Japan.
A lot of people find that jump from N4 to N3 pretty intimidating. And honestly, for good reason. The difficulty curve isn't just a straight line, it feels almost exponential. But hey, don't worry, every steep climb has a path, and that is exactly what we are going to map out for you today.
All right, let's really get into it. To conquer any challenge, you've got to understand its mechanics first, right? So we're going to break down the N3 exam so you know exactly what you're up against. No surprises.
The N3 is basically a 140-minute marathon. It's split into 3 very distinct, timed sections. You get 30 minutes for vocabulary, then a really hefty 70 minutes for grammar and reading combined, and finally, 40 minutes for listening. Each part is specifically designed to test a core skill while you're under the clock.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, the scoring. Think of it like a 2-hurdle system. First, you need a total score of at least 95 out of 180. But, and this is absolutely critical, you also have to score a minimum of 19 points in every single section. You could have an amazing total score, but if you bomb just one section, you fail the whole test. And this brings us to a key secret of the test, scaled scoring. What this means is that not all questions are created equal. Your score isn't just about how many you get right. It's actually adjusted based on how difficult each question is. So, getting a really tough question correct can boost your score way more than an easy one.
Okay, knowing the blueprint is one thing. Building your master plan is the next. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of what it actually takes to prepare, starting with the most important resource you have, your time.
You have to be super realistic with your timeline here. As you can see, your language background makes a massive difference. If you're coming in without a prior background in kanji, you might need hundreds of extra hours of dedicated study to get to that N3 level.
So let's talk numbers for a sec. For the N3, you're going to need to master roughly 650 kanji. Now, to put that in perspective, that's more than double what you needed for N4. The jump is huge, and you absolutely need a solid strategy for memorizing them all.
And on top of all that, your vocabulary has to explode to around 3,750 words. The focus also starts to shift, You move away from just concrete, everyday objects and into more abstract concepts, words like experience, opinion, and relationship.
Okay, so now we know the sheer scope of it. Let's drill down into the specific tactics, the real strategies for mastering each section of the test, piece by piece.
In the grammar section, the N3 is all about testing your understanding of nuance. You can't just know the general meaning anymore. For instance, you absolutely have to know the precise difference between similar grammar patterns like okage de for positive reasons, like thanks to you, and seide for negative ones, like it's your fault. They love to trip you up with these.
So what about those really tricky sentence ordering questions? You know, the ones with the little star that everybody dreads? How do you solve them without just, guessing and hoping for the best? The key is to be systematic, not random. Don't just start moving pieces around. Start by finding the core parts, like the noun and particle pair, chizuo. Then find the verb that ends the sentence, and from there, you build the rest of the sentence logically around those anchor points. Now for that monster 70-minute grammar and reading section, time management is everything. You absolutely cannot afford to get bogged down on one question. Sticking to a strict schedule, like this one here, giving yourself about a minute per grammar question and specific times for each passage type is so important if you want to avoid running out of steam before you even get to those valuable long passages at the end.
You want the single most effective strategy for the reading section? Here it is. Read the questions first. It sounds so simple, but this one little shift completely changes the game. It transforms you from a passive reader just trying to absorb everything into an active hunter, scanning the text for the specific information you actually need.
Okay, let's talk about the listening section. We're going to start with the biggest trap, a habit that so many people bring with them from the easier levels that becomes a massive liability at N3 speed.
So instead of desperately trying to catch every single word, your strategy has to be smarter. You've got to preview the questions, listen for the main points and keywords, and maybe most importantly, you have to practice recovering your focus. If you miss something, just let it go. Refocus immediately on what's being said right now.
All right, we've got our strategies for each section locked in. So finally, let's talk about the home stretch. How you're going to translate all this hard work and preparation into peak performance on the actual day of the test.
In those final weeks, your focus needs to shift away from learning brand new material and toward intense practice. This means taking multiple full-timed mock tests. But just taking them isn't enough. You have to analyze every single mistake. Become a detective and figure out why you made it. That's how you turn your weaknesses into strengths.
So the main thing to take away from all of this is that mastering the N3 isn't just about cramming knowledge. It's about having a smart, effective strategy. This is a test you can absolutely outsmart. So now that you have the blueprint, I have to ask, which single tactic are you going to start using today?